How's it going, everyone? It's Purple Haze here with this simple question. Do console sales matter in 2025? And the simple answer is yes and no. And so, what do I mean by that? Well, simple. If you're Nintendo, console sales matter a ton. Could you imagine if Nintendo came out and said, yep, the Switch 2, we're only selling half as many? No, there would be pandemonium. People would be saying Nintendo's going out of business. Console sales absolutely matter to a company like Nintendo. But what if you're Microsoft with Xbox? Well, that answer's closer to no. You see, Xbox has really been pushing their everything is an Xbox strategy. And with that said, we can almost assume that Xbox, particularly those consoles, don't matter as much. But if that number doesn't matter, what number does? And I'm about to get to that in a second. However, first, I want to talk about PlayStation. And though I don't think PlayStation and their console numbers matter as much as it does for a company like Nintendo, I absolutely believe they matter a lot more than for a company like Microsoft with Xbox. And if you follow my content, you'll know that when I talk about PlayStation, I always say Sony and PlayStation have a cost problem, meaning the cost of doing business on the PlayStation or for PlayStation is too high. They haven't figured out a way to lower the cost. So you might be thinking, well, selling more consoles, that doesn't directly lower the cost of PlayStations. Well, in a way, it does, right? There's economies of scales that can be realized. But indirectly, there's definitely an argument to be made that selling more consoles actually lowers the cost. And in that regard, what I'm talking about is that Sony now has more leverage with third parties, to include Xbox and Microsoft. You see, Sony, their strategy and where they've been really successful is really with exclusives and timed exclusives. And I fully expect as Sony continues to dominate this generation of console gaming or high end gaming consoles, thank you, FTC, for that term, I fully believe they're going to more and more lean into their advantages for having a dominant position in that market. That means they're going to be able to negotiate better deals. They're going to be able to negotiate more timed exclusives. And for the most part, they're going to be able to give people within the PlayStation ecosystem, particularly, more value for being in that ecosystem. But now let's go back to Xbox. If Xbox console numbers don't matter, what does matter? And to answer this question, you have to understand, why did console numbers actually matter in the first place? And it's simple. There was a positive correlation between console sales, or at least how much people are willing to spend on hardware, and how much they're willing to spend on software. Meaning, the more that people were willing to spend on their hardware, like buying a console, buying the high end console, the more likely they were going to spend more money on games. But if consoles no longer matter, what does? Well, now that Xbox has started to lean into the strategy of everything is an Xbox and really looking a lot more like a streaming service like a Netflix, well, those traditional Netflix metrics are going to matter to Xbox now. And what I mean by this is that we're going to now start to see subscriber numbers actually matter to them, as well as time spent on the platform, meaning time spent in games. Those two metrics are going to start to matter a lot to Xbox. And I think if people want to start to understand the health of the Xbox ecosystem, they're going to need to start to ask these questions. How long are people playing, and how many people do you have? I fully expect Xbox to start to release these numbers, as well as start to curate their content to more or less align with the super users within the Xbox ecosystem. However, this is not without its own risks. And I think Xbox is going to continue to do things that traditionally have been somewhat non traditional for gaming companies. And what I mean by that is Xbox is going to really be risking a lot by having their content right next to other content. And what I mean by that is if you're now on the Fire TV with Game Pass, well, the player, if they're playing on Game Pass through the Fire TV, they can easily switch to Amazon in a lot of Amazon content, no longer consuming Xbox content. Do I think this is a bad thing? Not really. But I do think it's a non traditional move, and I expect Microsoft and Xbox to continue to do moves like this. But that's what I think. What do you think? Do you think console sales matter in 2025? Do you agree with this move that Xbox is doing? Do you think PlayStation should be doing something different? And as of right now, what do you think the Switch 2 is going to be called? All right. With that said, you know what I say. I don't care where you're gaming, how you game, why you game, what you game on, how long you've been gaming. As long as you're gaming, you're good with me. And as always, this is Purple Haze, and the proof is in the playing. All right. Take care, y'all.